So Matt Rhule hasn't been the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers long, but already there's a different air around this program. We can listen to how college football analysts are talking about it and the excitement they have for the possibilities that lie in front of the Cornhuskers, but if you want a more tangible outlook, just look at the recruiting weekend that this coaching staff has put together for this weekend, where it truly is an insane collection of talent, something we have got to break down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe the Nebraska Cornhuskers are set to exit the weekend gaining a few commitments? And then let me know the names you're watching out for. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small, but they truly are massive to content creators such as myself, in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. And we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And as I stated in the intro, the Matt Rhule era has just begun in Lincoln, and already Cornhusker fans are so excited. And really, if we look around college football, you don't have to be a Cornhusker fan to be either A, excited or B, interested in what this coaching staff is going to be able to do. Because I myself am quite interested into what the future holds for this current Nebraska coaching staff. And when we really start diving into this weekend, it is truly insane the collection of talent Nebraska has been able to assemble for a recruiting weekend. And it's headlined by the #1 player in the 2024 class, Dylan Rhule. Now, Dylan Rhule is no stranger to Nebraska. We've actually talked about Dylan Rhule in connection to the Nebraska Cornhuskers on several occasions. I believe we have a video out on it, and on several live streams we've talked about this very topic. But Dylan Rhule has deep familiarity with the Cornhuskers, but every time he goes, he's just strengthening those relationships. So there's a few different reasons why I love the fact that Dylan Rhule is here this weekend for the Cornhuskers. First and foremost, I kind of just hinted at the point. Yes, his uncle is on staff, so that's going to give him a supreme understanding of the culture, supreme understanding of some relationships, but there's a lot of new faces in Lincoln. Every opportunity he has to go and get acclimated to those new faces, well, that's just good news for this Nebraska staff. Secondly, it's not about the coaches on staff, it's about the guys that could be in his recruiting class should he commit to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And this is something I talk about at length. If you are not new to the channel, if you've watched some of my other content, especially around recruiting, you may have heard me talk about this. I love whenever we see these weekends such as this, where these institutions are putting on big events and their major prospect, their major target, in this case a Dylan Rhule, a 5-star quarterback, is there. Because that individual is gaining an understanding of the guys that could be in their recruiting class, and if in this instance that Dylan Rhule decides this is the place for me, who better to start recruiting other guys to come and join you than your headlining quarterback? So, love that for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is absolutely a situation we have got to watch, because Nebraska is not the only institution really pushing after the #1 signal caller and the #1 player in the class of 2024. USC and the Georgia Bulldogs are right on the heels, and this is something we have got to watch. But kind of piggybacking off of a point I just made, Dylan Rhule is a guy that absolutely moves the needle, and wherever he commits, I think we could expect an avalanche of commitments to follow after him. Because when we look at this list, there are several playmakers that are on here that you have got to imagine would be excited to play with Dylan Rhule, including 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo, a top 10 player in the class of 2024, the #2 wide receiver, and he's from the state of Missouri, where he stands 6'2", 205 pounds, and there are several institutions that really want Ryan Wingo. This is a straight-up guy. This is a dude, but it goes to prove something I said. These guys are cognizant that wherever I go, I want the quarterback to be able to give me the ball. He's a wide receiver. He is reliant on the quarterback, so he's going to try and put himself in the best position possible, which really gets me right back into the point about Dylan Rhule, that your skill guys are going to be more inclined to play for an institution if they look in that recruiting class and they see a blue-chip quarterback. It even helps if it's a 5-star quarterback who's the #1 player in a class loaded with talent. But Ryan Wingo is not the only top skill player set to be in attendance. There's also Peyton Lewis, the top 10 running back in the class of 2024, and the #1 player in the state of Virginia. There's also Ryan Pelham, a top wide receiver, top 50 player in the class of 2024, who is a wide receiver who comes in as a top 10 wide receiver in the class. But one of my favorite things that the Nebraska coaching staff is doing in this recruiting visit is they are laying the foundation in the trenches. If you're not new to the channel, you know I talk about the trenches at length. Offensive line play, defensive line play, we talk about it a healthy amount. And the reason is quite simple, because you're not going to be successful without it. And when we look, the Nebraska Cornhuskers are putting together a list of visitors on the offensive line that is really impressive, including the #1 offensive tackle in the nation, Brandon Baker, from Mater Dei in California. And one thing we talk about, offensive line is a position group that I'm never surprised if they come in and have to sit a year. The difference in size, speed, strength, and technique required to be successful at the college game is just on a totally different level than the high school game. In college, you could be a true freshman going up against a senior who's been in a collegiate strength and conditioning room for 4 years. You may have been in there 6 months if you early enrolled. You can have so much athleticism. You can be a dude, but inherently that guy lining up across from you, he's got a little bit of an edge. He's got a greater understanding of college football. He's got a greater understanding of what it takes to be successful, and he's been in a strength and conditioning room going up against other college football players for years. Now, that's not to say it's impossible for freshman offensive linemen to play. That's not my contention here at all. We see it all the time. I'm only pointing out to how impressive it is when we see freshman offensive line play. I think sometimes we talk about it and you're like, oh yeah, that guy played as a true freshman. But if we're talking about offensive line, that's a dude. You play as a true freshman, I guarantee it, that's a dude. And so it's awesome to see on a weekend where not only are you putting together the #1 quarterback, a 5-star wide receiver, you have a 5-star offensive tackle, and multiple other very talented offensive linemen in attendance. But do you think we could end this video and not talk about the trenches on the other side of the ball, the defensive line, where Nebraska is bringing in the #1 defensive lineman for a visit, 5-star top 5 player in the class of 2024, Williams and Winari from the state of Missouri. And this is really what I mean. Whenever we look at this recruiting list top to bottom, if I was to remove the institution and just say, hey, there's somewhere out there this weekend that's going to have multiple blue chip offensive playmakers, the #1 quarterback and the #1 player in the class of 2024, multiple 5-star guys, which institution would you believe it was? And if I looked at the comments, I think they would be flooded with Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, USC, Oklahoma, possibly a Texas. And while Nebraska is every bit of a proud institution, do not get me wrong here, I don't think a lot of people would have pointed to the Nebraska Cornhuskers being the institution hosting this weekend, but here we are. And that's why I started this video in the manner I did, because there is a different air around the program right now. And though no results have been shown, you can ignore this if you want, but it is interesting. And at the very least, all I'm asking you is this: pay attention, because there's going to be some fun stuff happening in Lincoln, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.